The first one, in New Brunswick, we have, put this frame in. Most of our beekeepers use what is called an Varroa strip. It's a chemical strip. And if you apply this, it will cause the mites to drop off quickly, so you'd find it quicker on the bottom boards. Just speeds things up. Okay. This is an Varroa strip. It's covered up with plastic. You don't want to handle this with your hands. You wear gloves if you're going to be applying these. It's a chemical strip that is hung in the hives. It's applied by contact. So you want to position it in the hive where the bee cluster is. You want bees to have this surrounded at all times. So if you put it out here, the bees mostly are in the middle of the hive, so you won't get much contact. So you want to place them. In New Brunswick, if we're given a treatment with Varroa, there's 2 Varroas per deep super. Okay, so we have 2 of them. So we would put them fairly close together here or here. The reason being, that's where most of the bees are, but also in the evening when it cools down and the bees cluster, they're still going to be covering this strip because they will cluster right here. If you put it out here, there may be bees, 30 degrees warm, there may be bees out here, but if it gets cold in the evening, the bees will all cluster here and this will be left with nothing covered. So you want to put it in the center of the brood cluster, okay? So this could be your accelerant. If you want to make sure, get a quicker mite drop in your 24 hours, you would apply an Varroa strip and then come back after 24 hours and see if there's any mites down there. It would kill the mites fairly quickly and you can carry on. With these strips, we found just a little heads up clue. There's a little hole in top and we just stick a toothpick through there so they don't drop down to your bottom board. So that's one of the accelerants. Most of our beekeepers use that for their treatment and it's fairly good, fairly effective right now. We have not developed resistance against this yet. This is our 3rd strip. They developed resistance against the other 2, but right now this is very effective. And it's very easy to apply. Just put it in your hive when your honey's off and so many days, according to the package label there, it's going around, and take it out before they wrap up for winter, and that's your mite control. Okay, that's one accelerant you can use for your 24-hour mop.
That package has on it for sale in every province except ours. Is that because we don't have them, and therefore it's not for sale in Newfoundland, or is it not?
You don't need it.
It would be.
It says on it for sale in, and it lists all the provinces, but it does not list this one. Is that because we don't have it, or because it would be banned here?
It wouldn't be banned. I think it's a federal jurisdiction. I think it's registered for Canada.
Well, it's listed there province by province,
yes,
but we are not on the list.
I think, Peter, wouldn't it be just not on the list because it's just not needed here? It's just not sold here.
That's the best explanation. But in the section of our action plan where we talked about the role of government.
Let's just say how many people identify with this.
Yes, I'm going to bring it over. We'll just compare.
These treatments here in this province, there really shouldn't be an issue. But we want to be absolutely sure that they're not going to cause any trouble. We usually able to respond quickly if we get Varroa here. We don't have to just go, you can't use this, it hasn't been passed.
So you say you her after the honey is taken out?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, only.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, with the sugar, of course, it doesn't matter. With the sugar roll, like you dump your bees back in, that's a food product that's not going to interfere with your honey. Yeah.
Sort of.
We just use it until we're told not to.
It's just strange. It says for sale in, which means it's cleared in all those provinces. It looks, by the fact that we are not on that it's not cleared for sale.
I agree with you. I never noticed that before.
I just looked at Reddit. It's like,
Okay, we gotta go.
Okay, just for information, there was a question over here. He wanted to clarify that Varroa strip, when we apply it, our honey supers are off. This is after honey flow and before we winter wrap. So there's a little window there where we can treat our mites, and then we have our mite load knocked down to a reasonable rate so that we can go through winter and get into spring. So that's after the honey flow.
Can you talk a little bit about it being a miticide, being a pesticide?
Yeah, that particular Varroa strip, the active ingredient in it is amitraz. And amitraz is an orchard. It's an insecticide that they spray. and in spray form on some fruit trees. So it's an insecticide. Some people do not want to have insecticides in their hives because it will absorb somewhat into your wax, into your wood. Of course, there's a withdrawal period from when you use it to when you can have honey supers on, and it's only in for 42 days, and then not until the next year, the next 42 days, the next 12-month period. So it's not in there for very long if it's used correctly. It's been proven for use, but even so, some beekeepers don't want to have. I'm one of them. I don't use it. I haven't since 2007 when we come back from those 7 highs. We built back up again from those 7 highs. We didn't buy any bees or any queens or anything. I rebuilt, and now we have almost 200 hives again. I mean, we've had that for a while. But my point is, we've done it all without chemical, because I'm done with chemical, because we keep losing them. As Mary says, we've lost 2 already. This one has already shown some resistance in the US and out west in Canada already. So it'll be a matter of time before it'll occur here as well.
Do these kill your bees as well? Like, do you have a lot of dead bees after this treatment?
Pardon me?
No.
What's that?
Just the mite, a lot of dead mites.
Yeah, this does not kill bees.
No.
But it is a chemical, and it will be absorbed somewhat. It's within the safety levels of the Canadian government specs, but it's all as to what your management theories are for keeping bees.
Okay.
A lot of New Brunswick beekeepers use that?
The commercials do.
Yeah, most of them do.
Only because it's labor saving. That's the only reason why they use it, because it's simple to put in, simple to take out. It's 2 visits in their hives in the fall. They take their honey off, strips go on, feeders go on, and then the feeders come off, strips come out, pack them for winter. And then next year they do the same. Well, what we're going to demonstrate next is more labor intensive. So it's really a trade-off. For having less, what it amounts to is having a less chemical in your hive means you're going to have to put more time in it. That's what I was saying earlier, from the early 20s or early 2000s to 2007, when we were struggling with not having a strip, for the commercial people not having a strip. Their struggle was we had effective treatments, but not labor-wise. They couldn't afford the labor to make the other treatments effective. They were trying to, but it's just costing them too much. So the strips are a labor-saving device. That's really what they are. They're a thing of convenience.
Okay.
But the trade-off is chemical. So people familiar with this DE hive system? You have this here too. Yeah, it's interesting. We're not. It's kind of a unique Newfoundland thing because we're not real familiar with it in New Brunswick or Prince Edward Island.
But the screen bottom board is the same idea.
Yeah, it's just, of course, the entrance is just the other way, but the screen.
Where does it come in and out of?
The back.
Comes out the side?
That one configuration
Here.
screen board is not commercially available, so you'd have to make your own here, or we'd have to have one of our local beekeepers or carpenters make these up for us, for those of us who are using this particular style.
Yeah. Now, one point, okay, if you want to do the screen bottom board, you have your conventional normal bottom board that's not a screen bottom board. You can still do this.
This is what we see a lot in New Brunswick. What we're going to do.
You can buy this commercially, or you can take. Some beekeepers will just take a file folder, just a small file folder, not an illegal size one. Open it up in half. Should have brought one with us. Spray something on it, and just slide it in the front. But now we don't want the bees sticking to this, so you cover it with a mesh.
You got the piece?
You can buy hardware cloth and put it over it. Or there is a commercial mesh that you can buy. I don't know where it is right now. It's in the suitcase.
Actually, the screen is available to you.
Yeah.
Just cut this screen this size, and we just lay this metal screen right on top of that. and that keeps the bees from getting stuck on it and keeps them from cleaning it off so quick.
Yeah, so you can just slide it in the entrance, come back in 24 hours and maybe keep it out a little bit so you can get it back, retrieve it back out and just pull it out and do the same thing. So if you don't have that kind of equipment, you can still make this work, okay? All right. We're gonna go on to, this part can kind of scare beekeepers sometimes, but I promise you that what we're gonna go through does not harm bees. It's harmful to the beekeeper, so you have to take safety precautions, okay?
It can be.
Please take safety precautions whenever the day ever arrives. But what we're doing here right now, go ahead.
Okay, just to backtrack a little bit. These are commercially available, I still believe. This is what they were intended. If you don't have this system, just put this directly in on your your standard bottom board, like that. And that's what we use. They come cut all to the. This is just a sample. They come this shape, this size, and you just lay that on, and it covers it, and it bows up a little bit, and it keeps the bees from cleaning off the bottom board. So it does pretty much the same as what this does, but you don't have to have the door. But you do have to work on the front of the hive, put it in, and take it out to the front.
Okay, so while we're monitoring here in Newfoundland, you can take your normal 24-hour drop and see what you got, or your 72-hour drop and check again. But if you want to speed the process up, you have your accelerant. Your first one was your Apivar strip. The second accelerant is what's called oxalic acid vapor. This is what we use to treat our mites in our own personal bees. It's getting more popular in New Brunswick, but it doesn't kill bees. It's very safe, but very effective and very cost efficient too. The Apivar strips are quite expensive, but this, once you have your hardware equipment, it doesn't cost much to treat them. So we're going to go through this process and show you how it can, if you want to apply it, then it will cause the mites to drop quicker onto your sticky boards. Okay, so in order to do this, the first thing you have to have, which hive will we go with? We'll go with this. We'll just go with this hive, okay?
Sure.
We need the inside cover. We need an inside cover. Okay. All right. Oxalic acid vapor. You use oxalic acid. Okay, it's commercially bought. You want to explain what this is?
It says right on the label, oxalic acid dihydrate, 99.6%. There is an anhydrate. If you go to your local drugstore, you can probably purchase each of them, both. But it's got to be the dihydrate. It's commercially available from bee stores. That is the place to get it, because your local pharmacy will probably have a different price on it, and it's somewhat more. But it's this jug is what, no more than, it's 1 kilogram.
I think it's less than 20, isn't it?
1 kilogram, yeah, I was going to say $15, $16, maybe 17. Yeah, it's very inexpensive. It looks like, is this still sealed? Sealed. It looks like table salt, looks like sugar. It's, it's, it's exactly what it looks like. It will clump up a little bit with moisture, but doesn't clump up hard like sugar. So it's easy to make it right back to fine granules again. And actually, if it lumps up a little bit, you just shake it in the jar, and it comes right back to being all loose again. So it's really easy to handle. The only thing is, don't use it. I know we're Newfoundland, but try not to use it when it's misty or raining. It's all right in the fog, and it's all right in damp weather, kind of like this. It's just as long as you don't get actual precipitation on it, then it doesn't stick.
So basically the way this treatment works is we take this and we heat it up, and it forms a vapor in the hive, and the vapor causes the mites to dislodge and drop, okay? Now, the process of heating it up and keeping the vapor in the hive
is important.
Is very important.
Extremely important.
Extremely important.
It's a fumigation process. Mm-hmm. Some people don't actually understand that, and You probably maybe seen on the YouTube in places where they use certain applicators where they're applying it to the front of the hive, and it's coming, and they say, you know, you got enough on the hive when it comes out the top entrance, or when you see it start coming out. You don't want to see it coming out, because if it's going out, that means there's fresh air coming in and mixing with it and diluting it down. So you can't, my saying is, you can't ventilate and fumigate at the same time.
Okay.
But people try to do that and they're not getting good results.
So the very first thing, most important to do, is make sure your hive is totally enclosed. You don't want any cracks for this vapor to come out once it's in there. So some equipment, brand new equipment, is nice and tight and the vapor will stay in. But ourselves, our equipment is getting up there in age and you have little corners, wood will always rot. So we have to go around and duct tape any holes that the vapor can come out of. We will do he'll go around and do that, but also on here we have this on your top inside cover. This has to be all secured and covered over so the vapor doesn't come out. So there's different ways you can do that. You can put another solid sheet of plywood on it or take duct tape, cover it all over. But whatever you have to do, you have to totally seal up this hive. Okay, if you had 2 supers, you could have cracks in here, little corners, a little rotten or something, just put a little bit of duct tape here. Okay?
The longer you leave the hive after you've been into it, the better that the bees are going to naturally seal it up with propolis and wax anyway. Propolis around the edges, of course. So for us, we try to leave it about at least 2 weeks before I will apply an oxalic vapor treatment, just because it gives them a chance to reseal from the inside cover in between the boxes where I've had it open, and they do a pretty good job. But as Mary says, you want to make sure, so when we do it, as it's actually being applied, the bees will create a positive pressure inside by fanning it around, and that will drive it out through anywhere that it can get out. So the first time I apply it, I make sure that I go around the back and everywhere, and if it's leaking out anywhere, I put tape on it. And experiences showed us that this is frog tape. Painter's tape actually works a little better than duct tape. Duct tape does work good, but we're in a moist environment here, right? So duct tape doesn't work that well if it's wet or moist. This painter's tape does. It'll stick even when it's wet. So it's, at least for a while, for the treatment time. So that's a little bit of an edge over duct tape.
So after the treatment is applied, you have this hive full of vapor. You want to keep that vapor in that hive for 15 minutes. So you have to block out the entrance. You want to keep it in. So there's different choices. We use foam. We'll just stick it in here, whatever your entrance hole is. You want to close it right across. You can use that product, or you can use this product to seal it up. Okay?
And that's just a piece of pipe insulation that you can cut to any, you can cut it in half or cut it in third, cut it or just leave it if you've got a bigger entrance, deeper entrance. If you're using homemade bottom boards, you know, they come with different thick depths of entrance. Just whatever you need. Just cut your foam to whatever size you need.
I guess it's best to do this in the evening when everything is back at home.
You want all the bees in the hive.
Exactly.
Good, very good point. Yes. You do it in the evening or during the night. Yeah. Go with temperature.
Well, this works. It's not temperature sensitive, except for cooler temperatures. Anything above 5 degrees Celsius works really good. And that is, and it's not that the vapor doesn't work as well, it's that the cluster is more clustered, is tighter. So the looser the cluster, the more vapor will go up through more bees and get more exposure to more mites if they're there. So the warmer the weather, the better. Except, but then you don't want, I discovered this year, once you get up around 25 and humid, it doesn't work good either, because the bees are, even in the evening, right, they want to hang out or they want to come out and it's already too stuffy and warm there for them. So it's better to just, I'm doing it now like in the morning, now that we're getting warm, really warm evenings, in the morning is better, before they actually get flying and they're still all in there.
One night in the summer, if they're bearded out in the front of the hive, right?
Pardon me?
If they're bearded on a warm night,
right,
And you're doing this at dusk, are you?
Yes.
Do you smoke them back in the hive before you do this, or do you? How do you?
It's probably too warm a night to do it.
But we normally do it when there's no bearding. It's just, that's not normally a problem. But like I say, if there is bearding now, I'm just avoiding it by going in the morning. I'm just not even trying to get them in. But you could do that, but this does generate some heat, and they're already warm enough in there. So you got to leave them shut in for 15 minutes. Then they really get warm. So when you take the foams out, then they just come. It's okay, but it's just less agitating to them if you do it in cooler temperatures.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we're going through this so you can learn how to use this as an accelerant, okay, to get your mite with your screen bottom boards. But we'll also give you pointers of how we use this as a treatment. So the main point is you've got our hive all sealed up so it can't get back out. So now he'll pick his time, his temperature. We do this when the honey supers are off, okay? Honey supers are off, we're in the fall now, because by fall our mite counts have grown to a number where it's getting dangerous for our hive to survive the winter. So you want to knock down your mites to a reasonable level before they go into winter, okay? So our honey supers are off, our hive is nice and tight, our equipment is tight, we've duct taped what needed to be duct taped, we have our entrance ready to roll. So then we use what's called we have to have something to heat up the crystals. So we have hot plates that heat up the crystals. You put the crystal in this little slot here. Of course, there's two different kinds. We won't get into too much detail here, but they both do the same thing. They heat up the crystals. And you need something to generate the heat. So we have a battery over here. We hook it up to a battery.
thank you.
If you only have one or two hives, you can hook it up to the battery on your four-wheeler or your truck if you want. It won't do too much. We carry deep cell batteries because we're doing hundreds of hives
Deep cycle.
at a time, okay? So you want to, whatever process you have to heat this up. So we use a battery. You put your crystals in here. There's a measuring spoon. You put it in there. You put it in the hive here. Put it in there. You want to lock it back up. So you have this thing sticking out, okay? You'll hook it up to your power source. You put your timer on.
I like to use a mechanical kitchen timer. You can use your cell phone, works good on the timer, or some other timing device works good. But I find like if I do get caught in a bit of a drizzle, which I don't really want to do this procedure in drizzle anyway, but if there is just a minor drizzle, whatever, the cell phone doesn't really work that good. And then I have gloves on. Gloves doesn't work good on the screen, right? It doesn't get through to the phone. So I use a mechanical wind-up timer, and it works good. There's no batteries involved. It's always reliable. So probably on one, just using one at a time directly, it's about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Let's say 3 minutes. It's controversial as to how long, because it depends on really how much you're using. Now the instruction says to use 1 gram per 1 box. So on a double box you would use 2 grams. We didn't really explain the two different types here, but this one's made in Canada. It's a nice unit. This is the one that I use because it's relatively inexpensive. It is a little more complicated. Can you unattach that, please? It comes like this, so you have to put it together. Where the wire connections are located is a weak spot. If they get bent too much, they will break here. So I do carry a repair kit with me in case that does happen. But these are currently, with the wire, they're about $120 shipped to you, which is a real good deal because these work very well. I've had mine since 2007 and they haven't failed yet. As long as you don't overheat them, as long as you don't leave them going an extended period of time, that they will not, I haven't had them fail. And actually the heating unit is a jet of gold plug. is what it is. It's been turned down, it's been altered to work in this, but it's very reliable. So it's very good.
Okay.
This one is the most popular one worldwide. It's made in Europe, and it's right around $200 now. But it comes as a complete unit. There's nothing to break or to come apart on it, and it's all set to go.
So we got our hive nice and tight. We got our vaporizer in there. We got our power source. We got our timer going. So we flick the switch on and we wait 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, the crystallize has all been burned off and your hive is full of vapor. He will just lift this up just a little bit and you can pull this out and you keep this locked in for another 15 minutes, okay? And that's your basic procedure. Now during this procedure, you must wear this vaporizer. Put this on. This is what he wears at all times. Not too much escapes in the air, but some can when he's pulling it out or whatever. You don't want to risk it. This acid does not hurt the bees, but it can kill the beekeeper, okay? So take it seriously. It will go into your system.
Well, maybe there's some people, I'm not a qualified safety officer.
No.
So, but I have one work with me, so I'll just repeat what he told me. But since we're dealing with an organic acid, you will need an organic acid vapor cartridge, right? A dust cartridge or any other kind of cartridge is not suitable. It has to be an organic vapor cartridge. And these pretty well fits all, but you just I have to speak without putting it on, because once I do, you won't be able to hear me. And you can use extra sealant here, either face cream or some like body butter, something like that. Vaseline. I prefer to use face cream, it's better just to go around the liner, the soft liner. And when I put this on, you tighten up your straps so it's quite snug around the face, and then breathe in by holding your hands over your filters. And if you pretty well get a vacuum, of course it's going to leak possibly some, but if the leak is very slow, then you're good to go. And this fuzz here, this will be gone. So pretty well gone, shaved right down so the air can't come through that. So it's
So he'll wear this from the time he goes into the yard and starts this procedure, because we have about 25 hives in the yard, and it takes about an hour to do 25 hives, and he won't take it off till he gets back in the truck. Because after 15 minutes, we'll pull all the entrances. There still could be a little bit in the hot yard, and you just don't want to risk it. Okay?
What does it do to you?
Pardon me?
What does it do to you?
Well, if you get a direct breathe in of it, a direct, I was going to say gag, because that's what it'll do to you. It'll actually take your breath away. But what it does, it builds up in your blood. It goes through your blood and builds up in your kidneys and your liver and gives you things like kidney stones and like that. It'll re-solidify in your organs. You don't want that. So,
No.
not good for you.
So that, yeah.
But now that sounds very dangerous. But actually,
it's not. Yeah.
Because it's more of a precaution. Because when you're doing this and it's sealed in, after the 3 minutes of run time that it takes to actually turn that crystal into gas, and it's done its cycle, you can pull it out and leave that in, and then use it, cool it down by using a wet sponge right on this block. On this is aluminum, so it cools down very fast anyway. Just put it on a damp sponge and it cools it down. It doesn't have to be cold, just has to be cool enough so when you put the new crystal in, it doesn't want to vaporize. And so it's inside. My point is, when you pull that out, everything is inside, and there is no white vapor coming out anywhere if you have it taped and sealed. So it's not like you're working in a gas environment. It's not there. So, and if you want to, with that, you can work with the wind. If the wind's blowing this way, you start on this end. So it's always going away from you, even if there happens to be a leak. But it's not that deadly, and it's not that bad. So it's precaution.
It seems, yeah, it seems scary. So these are the two main treatments that we have in New Brunswick. There are some other ones that we can get into later when you have a problem. But this here actually allows you to keep your organic status as a beekeeper. This one doesn't. This is a chemical. So if you're organic minded and you want to work in that direction, you can use this and still keep it. Okay?
Oxalic acid, of course, is in our food, right? Some of the food that we eat. And it's a natural element, so it comes back out to natural levels. We're using it in a deadly concentrated level for the mite, but not to us and not to the bees.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Some rhubarb, yes.
Yeah, and other things, yeah, collard greens and things like that.
Most vegetables, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So it does come back out to natural levels. So this will not build up in your wood, your wax, or your honey.
Yeah, unlike this.
Right, so that's why you can have your organic status and use this product.
Now, do we have
It
time?
does not, and it doesn't, the real good thing about this, even compared to formic acid can be harmful to your bees. It'll kill queens, it'll kill bees, it'll kill brood. This does not. We've not had any trouble with queens or bees or brood with this treatment.
Just to add on to this, the reason we went through this, as Peter wanted us to do, because you can use this or the Apivar as an accelerant to get a quicker mite drop on your screen bottom board. But also gets you kind of familiar with the treatments that are down the road, you know, if Varroa ever happens. Just to add on to this treatment, you do it once, but actually a full treatment is 3 or 4 times. The biology of the Varroa mite is they reproduce under the brood cappings, okay? This does not, and neither one of them kills the mites that are developing under the brood cappings. Only the phoretic mites that are walking around on the nurse bees or on the other bees. So we'll give them a treatment that will kill the mites that are exposed. Well now, as time goes by, there's more cappings, more bees emerging, more mites emerging out of the brood. So we have to do this repetitively for the brood cycle, cover a whole brood cycle as more mites come out. So we do it 3 times intermittently to finally get our mite counts, all the ones as they're coming out. So it's quite labor intensive, cheaper than this. This is a one-time shot, and they leave it in for a full brood cycle so you get the more mites as they come out. That's kind of your basic biology of killing mites. You want to keep more. There is a formic acid that's not too popular in New Brunswick because it's, well, there's a lot of circumstances why it doesn't work that right. There's a formic acid that they claim kills the mites under the brood capping. You can try that treatment too. But these are the 2 most popular ones.
What is your timing space?
Between treatments? You want to take that? Timing in between treatments. You want to cover a full brood cycle. Okay? How often and what in between?
Well, I'm just thinking, like here in Newfoundland, they're just...
And then how long your mites are phoretic for, I guess, right? Between...
For monitoring, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What I mentioned, see, it's different when you're treating and when you're going for first detection. So I'm just trying to think about that. Like I said before earlier, you're with your weather conditions and the timing of when the bees, of when you would have to treat or not treat but detect. Before, the most ideal time would be before bees start to spread out on the island through nook sales. So you would have, when do you unwrap bees here generally? May? Okay. So you would have, so you could start then, you know, so you have May and all of June before nook sales occur, before you receive nukes or before you sell. So you could do it once a week. It doesn't really matter. as far as you can't do it too early to be harmful. It's not like if I do it every day or every 3 days, it's going to hurt the bees. It's not. Some in New Brunswick, if you have an emergency situation where you have a lot of mites in August or July, you still have time to save the hive to get the mites down, so you can get some healthy winter bees and your hive will survive through the winter. Do it every 3 days. The phoretic mite, the adult mite, comes out of the cell, is on the adult bee for 3 days before it goes back into the cell. So if you do it every 3 days, you get them as they're coming out and before they go back in, so you can make a big hole in the numbers of the reproductivity. So that's what we would do on an emergency treatment schedule. On a normal, like what we do, you can do it like once a week, and we can do it like for 3 weeks. People kind of do it differently. It all depends on what your mite levels are, but normally as soon as your honey's off, you can start and do it every week. As Mary said, 3 times. You can do it 4 times.